You are looking at my Glock 19 Gen 4 and Flat Dark Earth. It is back from the Glock factory for the first time. And I have just been out shooting it recently. And some of my fears, when I looked at the paperwork which came with my gun, have been realized. My Glock 19 Gen 4 is having the same issues it had, albeit at a lesser percentage as it did when it went back to Glock. And today it will be headed back to Glock, flat to Smyrna, Georgia, back to the factory for the second time in about a month and a half. The reason it's going back is because it still suffers from erratic ejection. Okay? You guys are going to see some footage of that here in just a second. I am disappointed, and I'm really bummed because I've now fired about 500 rounds through my Glock 19 Gen 4, and I really like the way the gun fits in my hands. I really like the way the gun feels. I like the holsters that I have for the gun. It's really a system for me. I have multiple holsters. I like the gun. I just don't like being hit in the face by spent casings, and having spent casings just kind of roll off my shoulder, my right shoulder, and down my back. To me, that's not how a gun should be operating and functioning. I sent my Glock back to Glock about a month and a half ago. And I sent it with this letter and the standard paperwork which Glock wants. And I asked to have two things done. And I'm going to read some from this letter to you guys. There are two individual services which my pistol requires. This pistol constantly ejects spent casings back into the shooter's face and neck. It does so with a variety of brands of ammo and weights of ammo. I have fired over 400 rounds of ammunition through this pistol. Blazer Brass, 115 grain, American Eagle, 147 grain, Federal, 115 grain, as well as others. Then I talk about the percentage that this happens. It happened less with the heavier rounds, but it was happening about 70% of the time that I was having cases coming back. This is both annoying and a safety concern. Sometimes the casings eject slowly and fall between the shooter's arms and chest. At other times they eject forcefully directly into the shooter's face. Then I thank them for your attention and service in remedying this issue or this problem. The second thing that I wanted them to do was install Glock factory night sights on my firearm. And I appreciate your time and attention to my firearm. Each time I have contacted your factory in Smyrna, Georgia, I have talked to a competent as well as helpful individual. Thank you. I signed my name. That's an exact copy of the letter I sent to them. And when I opened the box up and I opened the case up to my Glock, my heart sank because I looked at the paperwork that came back with my Glock, and I knew instantly that I was probably going to have exactly the same issue, the erratic ejection that I sent it to them with. And that's because it said inspected, upgraded, installed Glock night sights, and then right here, you can see it in yellow, right there, meets factory specifications. It tested okay. They did nothing to fix the problem. They did install the Glock factory night sights. And I want to talk to you guys a second about these Glock night sights that they installed at the factory wall. I was hoping to have the erratic ejection problem solved. I really, really like these Glock factory night sights. They have the luminescent, radioactive, in very small amounts of material, two in the back and one in the front sight. So it glows a little bit. They're also steel or metal, okay, rather than the plastic that the standard Glocks come with from the factory. It's my understanding that Glock is no longer selling pistols that have factory night sights on them. You have to send it to Glock and have them installed. That's kind of annoying because I would never ever buy a Glock again without the factory night sights or a similar kind of night sight. First of all, it's metal, much more durable. Second of all, it gives you that nice glowing luminescent factor in low light or no light. But those two factors are cool, more durability and easier to use the gun at night. But the chances of me actually using my gun at night are very, very slim. What I like most of all about these night sights is the fact that this white dot on the front sight, okay, is higher up on the actual sight than the plastic factory sights that it came with originally. And you guys, as you're going to see some shooting here, I missed the steel plates that I'm firing at. I'm firing at 7 yards. I missed once out of about 47 rounds. I didn't end up firing a full 50 rounds of ammunition. Okay, but I missed once, and I'm at 7 yards on probably 10-inch steel plates. And the reason I feel for that is the night sights, is the fact that this white dot is higher up on the front sight. I was having a very hard time lining them up and not losing part of the white dot on the plastic sights that come standard. Once I got these factory night sights installed, and I've only fired 50 rounds for this gun, and I'm not going to fire any more until the problem is fixed, because the gun is so much more accurate in my hands because I can see that dot. It is smaller, okay, and is higher up, allowing you to really line it up much quicker and in an easier fashion, at least from my eyes, than the standard plastic sights. So I love the factory night sights. It was about $60 plus some tax to do so, to have them install it, but it was worth every dollar. It made my experience with the Glock way better, and I'm finding myself to be more accurate with the gun, and it just points better for me. Of course, it is safety checked, the trigger is pulled, and there is no magazine in the gun, so we're safe. So I love the night sights. If you have a Glock 19 or a Glock 17 or any Glock, and and it's running reliably, I would definitely encourage you guys to get night sights for it. You're probably going to need to have somebody install them. Don't just order them. They're, from my understanding, pretty difficult to install. But since my gun was going back already because of the problems it had, I had those night sights installed. They are a must. They make the gun 100 times better. They're more durable. They allow you to shoot at night if you needed to, and they're more accurate because of that smaller front dot. Sorry. Here we go. So, shooting my gun, and you guys are going to see me shooting that gun here right now, and you guys are going to see the problems. You may choose to turn the volume up. I talk a little bit over my shoulder as I shoot this gun. I'm shooting this Federal 9mm 115 grain full metal jacket ammo. This is the ammo that my gun did the worst with before I sent it back to the factory. It does better. They did, my gun went perfectly clean to them. They did fire my gun. They did work on it somehow to make it a little bit better, because I was getting probably 75% of these were bouncing back and hitting my neck, face, or chest. Okay, if you wanted to see footage of that, you could go look for my Glock 19 Gen 4 range report 1, 2, or 3 by the TheGearTester. Okay? So you guys are going to see some shooting here. Turn your volume up so you can hear what I'm saying, and after the shooting I'll be back for a second to just kind of wrap things up. Alright, none of those rounds hit my face. That one just bounced off my chest. So many of those rounds are still having a problem. We're seeing the same problem that it had before it went back to Glock. Continue shooting here. Some of that ammunition that originally caused problems with the Glock. But I'm not seeing the same level of problems that I originally had with my Glock before it went back to the factory. That just hit the top of my foot. Alright. So we'll shoot through one more mag here. Where did I put it? Right here. One more mag full with the Glock.
just bounced off my forehead. So definitely still having the problem. I'm shooting here at about 7 yards. That just bounced off the top of my head. Last shot here. I wonder if I'm limp wristing, but I don't think I am. I'm going to have to look back at the video. But Glock.
All right, so you see that the problem persists. By my count, I got hit 4 times on my body, okay, on my head or shoulders or chest. That's what I felt as the gun fired, and I yelled those out. You could hear that if you turn the volume up on your computer. So that's significantly less than the problems that I was suffering when I fired the same exact ammo before it went back to the factory. But look at my right shoulder, and you'll see that rounds, you may want to rewind it. Rounds are spilling over my right shoulder, okay? You're not having rounds just going out and far away. The rounds are kind of coming back like this, lazily. And recently some people posted some videos on YouTube, some very famous or very well-watched individuals, and they signed off on the Gen 4 pistols. But I watched their videos and very, very carefully to see if they were suffering any of the issues that my pistol continues to. And the reality is they were. If you looked at some of these videos, and they'll remain nameless, but poke around a little bit, the casings were still spilling over the right-hand shoulder of the individual. Now, they didn't seem to be getting hit, and when they used a silencer on their gun, it was very clear to me that the rounds were popping out better, that they were ejecting much more regularly, that there was being more back blast or something that was causing the casings to eject and eject in a pattern that did not go back towards the shooter. But I watched, and as I watched videos of them shooting their Gen 4s, I watched the rounds kind of spill over their shoulder still. They weren't ejecting far away. I mean, you guys are going to see some range reports and a tabletop review on the Diamondback DB9, a really probably the smallest compact 9mm on the market today that I've seen, and it ejects the cases. I can't even find the cases. When I got done shooting this pistol, I could pick up all the brass. It was like 2 inches away from my right foot, okay, and a little bit behind my foot. That's how far it was ejecting. I don't like that. I don't want to see my brass at all. I was seeing brass. The other thing is the brass is ejecting in a kind of a strange way, and this has been since I purchased this gun. It's still having this problem where you'll see it kind of rolls out like so. I mean, it should be ejecting this way. Can you imagine having a semi-automatic shotgun or a pump shotgun, and as you pump and the round's supposed to go out this way, you see it curl over from right moving to left? I mean, that's ridiculous. I don't even know how you would intentionally make something do that. But that's kind of what's happening, is I'm seeing these rounds kind of eject like this and cross over like so. Now they are moving back, but they're kind of crossing over. And that happened at least once, maybe twice, with this 50 rounds. And when I saw that, that is a huge issue. That's a big problem. Being hit in the face, can you imagine? Being a police officer who's issued this gun, and you're going to get hit in the face. It never had any problems as long as I fired really, really expensive self-defense loads that were really, really hot. Glock has consistently said that these problems, and they've had these problems with the Gen 4 since they released them, some kind of problem, that you just needed a new recoil spring. Okay, recoil springs are really easy for Glock to send out to you to get them back. Anybody who can field strip the gun, and you should be able to field strip the gun if you're going to own it, can put it in. And Glock has made a big deal about that being the issue. But after doing a little research and poking around, I'm starting to think that maybe the recoil spring isn't the issue at all. Maybe it was originally 2 years ago, but the issue that I see is the extractor. Okay, this is what's supposed to grab onto the casing and fling it out. And I'm wondering if this extractor, which they change, is completely different in respect to the Gen 3s. Okay, first of all, see if we can bring this up. It actually has a loaded chamber indicator there. It actually sticks out beyond the frame when a round is in the gun. That's completely different to the Gen 3s. The Gen 3s did not have that feature. Okay, so this piece is different. So they did the outside different of this this piece here, and I imagine that they changed some of the dimensions or something with the Gen 4s. Of course, this is a Gen 4. And they're also now making these parts, I found out. They're metal injection molded, MIM. The Gen 3s were, and I wonder, as I'm hearing now, Gen 3s are starting to have the same issue, if they're starting to MIM, metal injection mold, the Gen 3 extractors. Okay? What metal injection molding means is they're basically pouring metal into a mold and then cracking the mold off and then working on the piece of metal. Many companies do this. I believe Smith & Wesson does this. I believe that Carr does this. Glock hadn't until the Gen 4s. This is significantly different than taking a piece of metal, heating it up, hammering it, stretching it, squeezing it, and then cutting out a piece of metal. Okay, that's a stronger, the way the carbon molecules, and I'm not an expert, but the way I understand it is that it really, when you forge something and then you cut it out of a forged piece of metal, it's much stronger than pouring it in, cracking it out, and then polishing it or doing whatever you might do. So I'm wondering if these MIMmed pieces are really the problem. And that would be a big issue for Glock, because they would need to recall all the guns, take them apart, or pay for a local gunsmith to take them apart and put in a new extractor, right? So that's a big issue. And I wonder if that's really not the issue with these guns. Now, for some of the good things, Glock told me that it would be 4 to 6 weeks before I would get my gun back. When I first sent it into them, I got it back within 2.5 weeks. We got it back very quickly, probably because they didn't do what they were supposed to. Okay, and for a company that still continues to put the word perfection underneath their logo on their official documents, you know, get it perfect. And I wish they would have kept it for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks and get it back to me functioning correctly. Let's just highlight that. This is a company that's saying that what they're doing is perfect. Okay? And my experience with a Glock 27 that I owned for a while was that it was perfect. But not anymore. Okay? Now, some people, the same individuals who kind of signed off on the Gen 4s recently, they talked to Glock at SHOT Show, and Glock kind of brushed off and said, hey, the issues with the Gen 4s, it's kind of snowballing on the internet. It's not really going on, or not as much as people think it is. We're working on those issues. I'm living proof that the gun goes back to Glock and comes back from Glock, and the problem is still not solved. So either, and I wonder if somebody maybe just cleaned the gun a little bit or looked at it, although it was totally clean when I sent it to them, and then installed the sights, and then it just got sent back to me. But I don't think that that's what happened. I mean, I was very clear. I stapled all this stuff together. I stapled this letter. It was very, very clear that the gun had problems. So maybe just a little mix-up happened. Everybody can do that. But I imagine that, maybe my gun just didn't get the services that it needed. So it's going back to them. They're paying for the label. And as I talked to the guy this last time to get them to send me the label, it was interesting. He said, well, are you shooting heavier ammo? I said, I know you guys shoot. And supposedly at the Glock factory, it's what they've told me, they shoot 125 or 124 grain CCI Blazer ammunition in an aluminum case. He said, are you shooting some heavier rounds? I said, I am, but it's still doing that. And I said, the reality is, the Gen 3s didn't do this. Why are the Gen 4s doing it? And at that point, he just kind of shut up and said, well, hey, we'll get you a shipping label. And so I appreciate that. But the problem is that there is some issue with the Gen 4s. Okay, that's going on. How widespread that issue is, I don't know. But from all my videos, my Glock 19 Gen 4 range reports 1, 2, and 3, and Glock 19 Gen 4 off to the Glock factory, from those I'm getting lots of people saying that they're having issues. People who like Glock, not Glock haters. And I'm not a Glock hater. Okay, I ponied up the money. But for a $650 gun, which is basically what I paid for this gun, and then spending another $60 or so on the night sights and getting multiple magazines. The gun came with 3 magazines, but I bought a couple more. And after I've, 500 rounds or so of 9mm, we're talking, and some holsters, we're talking like close to $1,000 investment And 3.5 months after I purchased this gun, it's still not working well. And I'm going to send it back to Glock, and if they only took 2.5 weeks and sent it back to me, I will have owned this gun for basically 4 months, and one of those months, 1/4 of the time, they have had this gun back in their possession trying to get it to work well. Okay? Basically, a $700 investment plus the ammo that I put in it, plus holsters, plus night sights. We're talking a lot of money. I see friends, they're like, dude, I could never afford a Smith & Wesson. It's like $700 for a revolver. Well, guess what? Glock 19, now about a $650 investment, at least where I live. You might be able to get it for about $600. That's a lot of money for a gun that 3.5 months, 4 months into ownership is still not working properly. I can't imagine having been, and this is not my first Glock and this is not my first gun, but I can't imagine being an individual who saved up their money, wanted what they thought was the best, what they thought was perfect, okay? Can't imagine being this individual who then buys this gun, saves up, maybe they can save $100 a month. That's lots of money. 7 months later, they buy this gun as their first gun. Maybe they're going to use it for concealed carry or maybe just home defense, and they're having these kind of issues. And that would make me really, really mad. I have other options if I felt like I needed them, and so I have other options. But I can't imagine being someone who owned this gun and this is their first gun and had all these problems with it. They're getting popped in the face still. Okay, still happening to a lesser degree. My friends and shooting buddies make fun of me like, dude, where's the Glock 19? You haven't shot that hardly at all. And the reality is I haven't shot it as much as I would have because it's still kicking me in the face. I'm every time I shoot it, I'm kind of holding my lip just right, hoping it doesn't pop me. So Glock 19 Gen 4 headed back to the factory for not the first time, but the second time. I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel if this video has been interesting to you. That means that you'll get updated when I post any updates on this particular pistol. I also have lots of other videos about shooting, survival, and camping gear. My goal is to produce quality video reviews on those topics, and I would appreciate it if you'd subscribe to my channel. I encourage you to comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on the Gen 4 Glocks, what's happening maybe with your Gen 4 Glocks. Maybe they're functioning flawlessly, and I hope that they are. Thank you so much for your views and your subscriptions. This is the Gear Tester, signing off.